December 6, 1944, Hürtgen Forest, Germany. The frozen ground crunched beneath Hauptmann Friedrich Weber's boots as he knelt beside the body of an American soldier from the 28th Infantry Division. The temperature had dropped to -8 degrees Celsius overnight, and morning fog clung to the shattered pines like funeral shrouds. Weber's hands, even through their wool gloves, trembled slightly as he picked up the rifle lying next to the fallen GI. An M1 Garand, serial number 3,412,000, manufactured at Springfield Armory in Massachusetts just 8 months earlier. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Weber examined the weapon with the careful attention of a professional soldier who understood that his life might depend on recognizing American capabilities. The walnut stock showed scratches and mud, evidence of weeks in the forest. The metal surfaces bore the patina of hard use but no rust, despite the relentless moisture of the Hürtgen's winter hell. He worked the action. Even cold and dirty, the bolt moved smoothly. The en-bloc clip, still containing 3 rounds of 30-06 ammunition, gleamed dully in the weak morning light. What Weber held in his hands represented something his superiors in Berlin had spent 5 years trying to deny. American industrial capacity had produced not just vast quantities of weapons, but weapons of genuinely superior design. The M1 Garand was lighter than the German Kar-98K bolt-action rifle, yet fired a more powerful cartridge. It delivered 8 aimed shots as fast as a soldier could pull the trigger, while German infantry still worked bolt actions between each round. Most critically, every American rifleman carried this capability, not just specialists or elite units. Weber had read the intelligence reports that were beginning to circulate among German officers by late 1944, reports that tried to explain how American infantry squads, on paper no larger than German squads, could generate such overwhelming volumes of accurate fire. The mathematics told a story that traditional military thinking struggled to accept. One American rifleman with an M1 Garand possessed the practical firepower of 2, perhaps 3 German soldiers armed with Kar-98K rifles. Multiply that advantage across an entire company, an entire division, and the tactical implications became devastating. That morning, in the Hürtgen Forest, as Weber studied the captured Garand while his regiment prepared for another day of defensive fighting against the American advance, he understood something his high command seemed unable to grasp. Germany had lost the arms race not through lack of engineering skill or tactical doctrine, but through fundamental misjudgments about what modern infantry combat required. The Americans had correctly identified that the future belonged to semi-automatic rifles. Germany had not. This story begins not with German recognition of American superiority, but with German confidence in their own infantry rifle, a confidence that would prove tragically misplaced. In October 1935, the German Wehrmacht officially adopted the Karabiner 98 Kurs, or Kar-98K, as its standard infantry rifle. This weapon represented the culmination of German bolt-action rifle development, stretching back to 1888 and the original Gewehr 88. The Kar-98K was a shortened carbine version of the Gewehr 98 rifle that had served Germany throughout World War I. German military planners believed it represented the perfect balance of accuracy, reliability, and soldier-proof ruggedness. The Kar-98K fired the 7.92 by 57mm Mauser cartridge, universally known as 8mm Mauser. This powerful round pushed a 198-grain bullet at approximately 2,490 feet per second, generating roughly 2,700 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The cartridge had been designed in 1888 specifically for military use and had proven itself in 2 world wars and countless colonial conflicts. It possessed excellent range, penetration, and stopping power. The rifle itself measured 43.6 inches overall, with a 23.6-inch barrel. It weighed 8.8 pounds unloaded, 9.5 pounds with a loaded 5-round internal magazine, bayonet, and sling. The action was a controlled feed bolt action, meaning the bolt face captured the cartridge rim as soon as it was stripped from the magazine, maintaining positive control throughout the loading cycle. This made the action essentially jam-proof and extremely reliable, even when dirty or damaged. German engineering had refined every aspect of the design. The bolt handle was positioned to allow rapid manipulation without requiring the shooter to break his cheek weld on the stock. The two-stage military trigger provided a predictable brake for accurate shooting. The adjustable rear sight could be set for ranges from 100 to 2,000 meters, though practical combat ranges rarely exceeded 400 meters. The internal magazine held 5 rounds, loaded via stripper clips, allowing moderately quick reloading by trained soldiers. Most importantly, German soldiers received extensive training in marksmanship with the K98K. Wehrmacht infantry training emphasized accurate, aimed fire at identified targets. German military doctrine held that disciplined, accurate rifle fire from well-trained soldiers would dominate the battlefield. Each shot was meant to count. German instructors taught recruits to acquire targets carefully, aim precisely, and make every round effective. This philosophy had served Germany well in World War I and in the early campaigns of World War II. Production of the K98K occurred at multiple factories across Germany and occupied territories. Mauserwerke in Oberndorf, JP. Sauer and Sohn in Suhl, Berlin-Lübecker Maschinenfabrik, Waffenwerke Brunn in Czechoslovakia, and several other contractors manufactured the rifle. Quality remained consistently high through 1942. Each rifle was proof-fired and inspected before acceptance. Parts were precisely machined and carefully fitted. The rifles represented the best of German manufacturing tradition. By 1940, Germany had equipped its entire infantry with the K98K. Approximately 14.6 million would be manufactured during the war years. This massive production effort consumed enormous resources and skilled labor, but German leadership believed the K98K represented the pinnacle of infantry rifle design. They were convinced that well-trained soldiers with accurate bolt-action rifles would dominate less disciplined opponents. The German military had observed developments in semi-automatic rifle technology with interest, but ultimately with dismissal. The Soviet Tokarev SVT-38 and SVT-40 semi-automatic rifles were known to German intelligence. Approximately 1.6 million SVT-40 seconds would be produced. German evaluations acknowledged the weapon's firepower advantage, but noted reliability problems, particularly in winter conditions. Captured examples were examined and found wanting. German ordnance officers concluded that semi-automatic rifles were too complex, too fragile, and too difficult to manufacture in the quantities required for modern war. American development of the M1 Garand had not escaped German attention. Intelligence reports from the 1930s had documented U.S. adoption of a semi-automatic rifle. German military attachés had observed American training and noted the new weapon. But Germany's stunning victories from 1939 through 1942 seemed to validate their doctrine. France fell in 6 weeks. The Low Countries collapsed in days. Yugoslavia and Greece were conquered in weeks. German soldiers with K98K rifles had defeated every enemy they faced. Why change a system that was winning? The first serious German encounters with American forces equipped with M1 Garands occurred in North Africa during Operation Torch in November 1942. American troops landed in Morocco and Algeria, beginning direct combat operations against German forces. The encounters were initially small-scale, with American units still learning combat fundamentals. But German after-action reports began noting something unusual about American infantry firepower. A report from the 5th Panzer Army, dated December 19, 1942, observed that American infantry squads could generate volumes of rifle fire that seemed disproportionate to their numbers. The report suggested Americans must be employing more automatic weapons than standard tables of organization indicated. German intelligence officers, examining this puzzle, initially concluded that Americans were simply wasting ammunition through undisciplined fire. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The concept that every American rifleman possessed semi-automatic capability had not yet registered. The North African campaign revealed other German misconceptions. American soldiers, initially inexperienced and poorly led at Kasserine Pass in February 1943, nevertheless demonstrated remarkable resilience. By the time of the Tunisia campaign in April and May 1943, American infantry had learned to use their superior firepower effectively. German veterans who had fought on the Eastern Front noted that American rifle fire was both heavier and more accurate than Soviet fire, a troubling development. The invasion of Sicily in July 1943 and the Italian mainland campaign, beginning in September 1943, brought sustained, intense combat between German and American forces. German defensive positions in mountainous Italian terrain should have favored bolt-action rifles. Long sight lines, good fields of fire, and prepared positions traditionally advantaged accurate, long-range rifle fire over volume. Yet American infantry consistently proved able to suppress German positions and maneuver effectively, despite being the attacking force. Lieutenant Heinrich Müller of the 15th Panzergrenadier Division wrote in his diary after fighting near Monte Cassino in January 1944, "The Americans advance with a strange confidence. When we engage them at range, they do not seek cover and return slow, careful fire as our doctrine teaches. Instead, they immediately return heavy, rapid fire that forces us to remain under cover. By the time we can resume aimed fire, they have closed the distance or brought up supporting weapons." Müller's observation captured something German tactical doctrine had difficulty explaining. American infantry used their M1 Garands to generate suppressive fire that pinned German defenders while other elements maneuvered. This represented a fundamental difference in tactical approach enabled by the semi-automatic rifle. German soldiers firing Kar 98Ks could deliver accurate fire, but had to work the bolt action between each shot, momentarily breaking their aim and sight picture. During that fraction of a second, they were vulnerable and unable to observe the enemy. American soldiers firing M1 Garands maintained sight picture and trigger control through multiple shots. They could observe their target continuously, adjust aim based on where previous rounds impacted, and maintain fire without the mechanical interruption of working a bolt. This created a psychological effect beyond mere volume. German soldiers under fire from M1 Garands experienced continuous incoming fire that gave them no opportunity to return effective fire. The suppression was more complete than simple volume would suggest. By mid-1944, as American forces prepared for the invasion of France, German intelligence had compiled extensive reports on American small arms. The M1 Garand featured prominently in these assessments. A Wehrmacht intelligence bulletin dated May 15, 1944, distributed to units preparing to defend against the expected invasion, provided detailed information on American weapons. The bulletin noted, "The American M1 rifle fires the .30 caliber cartridge semi-automatically with an 8-round capacity. Rate of fire is significantly higher than our Kar 98K. American infantry doctrine emphasizes rapid fire and movement. All American riflemen carry this weapon, not merely specialists. German soldiers should expect heavy, sustained rifle fire from American units, even at the squad level." The bulletin was accurate, but failed to convey the tactical implications. German defensive doctrine in Normandy anticipated that superior German training, better positions, and, quote, familiarity with terrain would offset any American equipment advantages. German soldiers were confident in their weapons and their training. The Kar 98K had served them well for nearly a decade of warfare. American industrial capacity might produce vast quantities of equipment, but German military professionalism would prove decisive. This confidence would be tested beginning June 6, 1944, when American forces landed on Utah and Omaha beaches. The Normandy campaign from June through August 1944 forced German commanders to confront realities they had previously dismissed. American infantry, fighting through the bocage country of Normandy's hedgerows, demonstrated that the M1 Garand provided decisive tactical advantages in close terrain. The bocage consisted of small fields bordered by ancient hedgerows, earth embankments 4 to 6 feet high topped with dense vegetation. Visibility was limited to 50 to 100 meters. Combat occurred at close range in sudden, violent encounters. In this environment, The M1 Garand's rapid fire proved devastating. American infantry could deliver 8 aimed shots in the time German soldiers could fire 3 or 4 with their Kar-98Ks. When opposing squads made contact at close range, the Americans could generate overwhelming fire immediately. German veterans of the Eastern Front, where they had faced Soviet infantry armed primarily with M1 Garand bolt-action rifles, found themselves shocked by the weight and accuracy of American rifle fire. Oberst Colonel Hans von Luck, commanding the 125th Panzer Grenadier Regiment of the 21st Panzer Division, later wrote about fighting American forces near Caen. Von Luck was a highly decorated veteran who had fought in Poland, France, North Africa, and Normandy. His assessment carried weight among German officers. The American semi-automatic rifle gave their infantry a firepower advantage we could not match, von Luck recalled. Our soldiers were excellent marksmen with the Kar-98K, but marksmanship alone could not overcome the Americans' ability to maintain continuous fire. In the bocage, where engagements happened suddenly at close range, their rifle gave them precious seconds of advantage. Those seconds often proved decisive. Von Luck's regiment faced the American 9th Infantry Division in heavy fighting through July 1944. His observations appeared in reports that circulated among German commanders. Other officers confirmed similar experiences. The pattern was consistent. When German and American infantry engaged at close to medium ranges, American squads could generate rifle fire that German squads could not match without employing machine guns. The problem extended beyond simple rate of fire. German squad tactics relied on the MG-42 machine gun as the primary source of firepower. The MG-42, firing at rates up to 1,200 rounds per minute, provided devastating suppressive fire. German rifle squad tactics centered on the machine gun. Riflemen armed with Kar-98Ks served primarily to protect the machine gun and provide additional fire. The squad moved where the machine gunner needed to go. The squad's effectiveness depended almost entirely on the machine gun remaining operational. American squad tactics distributed firepower more evenly. While the Browning automatic rifle served as the squad automatic weapon, every rifleman with his M1 Garand contributed significant firepower. If the BAR gunner was hit, the squad retained substantial firepower. If the German MG-42 gunner was hit or the gun jammed, the squad's effectiveness dropped catastrophically. German riflemen with Kar-98Ks could not generate the volume of fire needed to suppress enemy positions without their machine gun. This difference became apparent in countless small unit actions across Normandy. Captured German documents from the period show increasing concern about American small arms superiority. A report from the 352nd Infantry Division, dated July 23, 1944, stated, American infantry squads possess rifle firepower equivalent to a German squad with an operational machine gun. When our machine guns are disabled, American rifle fire dominates engagements. German soldiers began actively seeking captured M1 Garands to use in combat. This represented an extraordinary development. German soldiers had historically shown little interest in capturing enemy rifles. The Kar-98K was considered entirely adequate, and using captured weapons created ammunition supply problems. Yet in Normandy, German soldiers began carrying captured M1 Garands as secondary weapons, or even replacing their Kar-98Ks entirely. Gefreiter, Private Klaus Becker of the 352nd Infantry Division was captured by American forces near Saint-Lô in late July 1944. During interrogation, documented in American intelligence reports, Becker explained why he had been carrying an M1 Garand when captured. I took it from a dead American 3 days ago, Becker stated. I kept my Kar-98K but carried the American rifle when possible. The rapid fire is extraordinary. You can engage multiple targets before they react. With my Kar-98K, I fire, work the bolt, acquire the target again, fire. With the American rifle, I just keep firing. In close combat, this is the difference between life and death. Becker's testimony appeared in intelligence summaries distributed to American units. Similar statements from other German prisoners confirmed a pattern. German infantry recognized the M1 Garand's superiority through direct combat experience. What German high command had dismissed as wasteful American tactics, frontline German soldiers understood as a legitimate technological advantage. The ammunition situation provided further evidence of American industrial supremacy. German soldiers in Normandy fought under increasingly severe ammunition shortages. By August 1944, German infantry units often received only 60 to 80 rounds per rifleman for extended operations. German doctrine emphasized ammunition conservation. Every shot was precious. Soldiers were instructed to fire only when certain of hitting their target. American soldiers, by contrast, received ammunition in quantities German soldiers found incomprehensible. Standard American load for an infantryman was 80 rounds carried in 10 en-bloc clips, with additional ammunition available from unit supply points in virtually unlimited quantities. American soldiers could fire freely, using their M1 Garands to suppress enemy positions, engage targets of opportunity, and maintain continuous fire during assaults. The psychological effect of this prodigal ammunition expenditure intimidated German defenders who had learned to husband every round. A German intelligence report from August 1944 attempted to quantify American small arms ammunition consumption. The report estimated that American infantry units expended 20 to 30 times more rifle ammunition per soldier than comparable German units. German analysts interpreted this as evidence of poor fire discipline and inadequate training. They failed to grasp that American tactical doctrine deliberately used ammunition abundance to gain tactical advantage. American infantry could afford to suppress enemy positions with sustained rifle fire precisely because industrial capacity ensured unlimited resupply. The contrast extended to weapon maintenance and reliability. The Kar-98K, with its simple bolt action and few moving parts, functioned reliably under nearly any conditions. Mud, sand, rain, snow, the Kar-98K continued firing. German soldiers trusted their rifles absolutely. This reliability represented a genuine strength of the design. The mechanical simplicity meant few parts could break or malfunction. The M1 Garand, with its gas-operated system and more complex mechanism, theoretically, was more vulnerable to environmental conditions. German intelligence reports predicted that the American semi-automatic rifle would prove unreliable in combat conditions. Yet American soldiers demonstrated that proper maintenance kept the M1 Garand functioning reliably. The rifle required more cleaning and lubrication than the Kar-98K, but American logistical systems ensured that cleaning supplies and spare parts were readily available. German prisoners consistently reported surprise at M1 Garand reliability. The weapons continued functioning despite hard use in Normandy's mud and rain. When malfunctions did occur, American soldiers could usually clear them quickly, using proper maintenance procedures they had learned during training. The expected reliability advantage of the Kar-98K failed to materialize in practice. By late summer 1944, as German forces retreated from France toward the German border, the evidence had become overwhelming. American infantry possessed a significant advantage in individual small arms. German after-action reports no longer dismissed this advantage as merely quantitative. Officers recognized a qualitative difference that affected tactical outcomes. The question was whether German leadership would acknowledge this reality and attempt to respond. The answer came too late and proved too limited to affect the war's outcome. German weapons development during World War II had produced numerous innovative designs, but organizational dysfunction and resource constraints prevented effective responses to identified problems. The semi-automatic rifle problem exemplified these failures. Germany had actually developed semi-automatic rifles before the war. The Gewehr 41, or G41, was designed in response to a 1939 requirement for a semi-automatic rifle. Two versions were produced, the G41M by Mauser and the G41W by Walther. Both used unusual gas systems intended to avoid drilling holes in the barrel for a gas port. The Mauser version proved unreliable. The Walther version worked better, but suffered from complexity and weight. Approximately 40,000 G41W rifles were produced between 1941 and 1943, primarily issued to Eastern Front units. Reports from these units were mixed. The rifle provided increased firepower, but proved unreliable in harsh conditions. Dirt, mud, and cold caused frequent malfunctions. The weapon was also heavy, weighing over 11 pounds, heavier than the Kar-98K despite being semi-automatic. Maintenance requirements exceeded what could be performed under field conditions. Based on G41 experience, Walther developed an improved design, the Gewehr 43, or G43. This rifle, introduced in 1943, used a more conventional short-stroke gas piston system, similar to the Soviet SVT-40. The G43 was lighter than the G41 at 9.9 pounds and proved more reliable. Approximately 400,000 G43s would be manufactured through the end of the war. The G43 represented a genuine attempt to match American and Soviet semi-automatic capability. In the hands of trained soldiers with proper maintenance, the rifle performed reasonably well. It fired the same 8mm Mauser cartridge as the Kar-98K from a 10-round detachable box magazine. This gave it a slight capacity advantage over the M1 Garand's 8-round en-bloc clip. The rifle could mount optical scopes and was often issued to designated marksmen, but the G43 never approached the M1 Garand in refinement, reliability, or ease of manufacture. The G43 required approximately 25 man-hours of skilled labor to produce. An M1 Garand required fewer than 8 man-hours by 1944, with much of that being semi-skilled labor. German manufacturing capability, strained by bombing and shortages, could not mass-produce complex weapons efficiently. Quality control problems plagued G43 production. Early rifles suffered from cracked bolts and broken parts. Later production runs improved but never achieved the consistency of American production. Most critically, even as G43 production ramped up in 1944, the numbers remained far too small to equip German infantry generally. 400,000 G43s spread across an army of millions meant that the vast majority of German soldiers continued carrying Kar-98K bolt-action rifles throughout the war. The semi-automatic rifle remained a specialized weapon issued to select units and individuals rather than standard infantry equipment. German leadership faced a fundamental dilemma by late 1944. They recognized American small arms superiority. They possessed semi-automatic rifle technology, but they lacked the industrial capacity, time, and resources to re-equip their entire army with G43s. Manufacturing priorities had to be carefully allocated among tanks, aircraft, ammunition, and countless other requirements. Rifles, while important, competed with more urgent needs. The decision was made to focus limited resources on other weapons systems considered more critical. Development of the Sturmgewehr 44, or St. G44, received higher priority. This revolutionary assault rifle, firing an intermediate cartridge and capable of both semi-automatic and full-automatic fire, represented a conceptual leap beyond both bolt-action and semi-automatic rifles. But St. G44 production never exceeded 440,000 units, again too few to generally re-equip German infantry. So German soldiers continued carrying Kar-98Ks against American soldiers carrying M1 Garands. The firepower disparity that German officers had identified in 1942 remained unresolved through war's end. This became starkly apparent during Germany's last major offensive operation, the Battle of the Bulge, beginning December 16, 1944. The Ardennes Offensive, Hitler's desperate attempt to split Allied armies and capture Antwerp, threw 3 German armies against American forces in Belgium and Luxembourg. Over 400,000 German troops attacked on a 60-mile front. The offensive achieved initial surprise and made significant penetration into American lines, but sustained success required German infantry to defeat American infantry in countless small unit actions across the Ardennes region. Here, the M1 Garand's advantages became decisive. American units, many initially surrounded or isolated by the German advance, held critical positions through superior small arms fire. At Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division, surrounded by German forces, maintained a defensive perimeter despite being outnumbered. Every paratrooper carried an M1 Garand. The division could generate rifle fire that German forces, despite numerical superiority, could not overcome without suffering prohibitive casualties. The weather during the Bulge, bitterly cold with heavy snow, tested weapons severely. Temperatures dropped below 0 Fahrenheit. Snow and ice covered everything. Traditional military wisdom held that complex mechanisms would freeze and fail under such conditions. The simpler Kar 98K should have proven more reliable than the M1 Garand. Instead, both weapons continued functioning. German soldiers found their Kar 98Ks performed as reliably as ever. American soldiers found their M1 Garands, properly maintained with winter-weight lubricants, also functioned reliably. The expected reliability advantage of the bolt-action rifle failed to materialize. Meanwhile, the firepower advantage of the semi-automatic rifle remained fully effective. German units attacking American positions discovered that American rifle fire, even from foxholes and hastily prepared defensive positions, created such dense fire that assaults stalled. Hauptmann Wilhelm Schurff, commanding a company of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, attempted to storm American positions near Rocherath-Krinkelt on December 17th. His attack failed with heavy casualties. Schurff's after-action report, captured after the war, stated, "American rifle fire was extraordinary in its volume and accuracy. My men could not close with the enemy positions. Every time they rose to assault, American fire drove them back. The semi-automatic rifles gave the Americans a fire superiority I could not overcome, even with numerical advantage. Had our infantry possessed similar weapons, I believe we would have taken the position." Schurff's assessment appeared in numerous German documents from the Bulge. Officers recognized that American small arms superiority contributed significantly to the offensive's failure. German infantry simply could not overcome prepared American defensive positions without taking casualties that proved unsustainable. The M1 Garand allowed American soldiers to generate fire that would have required machine guns for German soldiers to match. As the Bulge battle progressed through late December and into January 1945, German ammunition shortages became critical. Units reported down to 20 or 30 rounds per rifleman. American ammunition supplies, though strained by the unexpected offensive, never approached critical levels. American soldiers continued firing freely, while German soldiers hoarded every round. The psychological impact proved significant. German soldiers understood they faced an enemy who could shoot more rapidly, carried more ammunition, and would never run out of supply. This knowledge affected morale and tactical decision-making. German infantry became increasingly reluctant to initiate firefights unless holding overwhelming advantage. The initiative passed to American forces even before the strategic tide turned against the German offensive. By late January 1945, as German forces withdrew from the Bulge salient, the operation had consumed Germany's last operational reserves. The offensive's failure sealed Germany's fate. Among the many factors that contributed to this failure, the infantry's inability to overcome American defensive positions ranked highly. And that inability stemmed partly from the basic reality that German soldiers with bolt-action rifles could not match the firepower of American soldiers with semi-automatic rifles. Through the final months of the war, from February through May 1945, as Allied forces advanced into Germany itself, the firepower gap between German and American infantry only widened. German units fighting defensive actions on German soil faced logistical collapse. Ammunition became scarce. Spare parts disappeared. Training for replacement troops dropped to minimum levels. Meanwhile, American supply lines, though stretched across France and into Germany, continued delivering ammunition and equipment in abundance. Young German soldiers, conscripted in desperation during the war's final months, received minimal training with the Kar 98K. Many had fired fewer than 50 rounds before entering combat. These poorly trained troops faced veteran American infantry who had carried M1 Garands for months or years and knew their weapons intimately. The combination of superior equipment and superior training created matchups where German forces had virtually no chance of tactical success. German officers' private communications and diary entries from this period reveal acknowledgement of defeat's inevitability. Many specifically cited American materiel superiority, including small arms, as having made German victory impossible, regardless of tactical skill or soldier courage. The gap was simply too large to overcome through professionalism or determination alone. A letter from Major Ernst Vogel to his wife, dated March 10, 1945, captured this recognition. "We fight with weapons designed in the last century, while the Americans employ technology we cannot match. Every aspect of their equipment surpasses ours. Even their basic infantry rifle, which all their soldiers carry, gives them advantages we cannot overcome. We are brave, we are skilled, but we are outmatched." This war was lost in the factories and design bureaus as much as on the battlefields. Vogel was killed in action 2 weeks after writing this letter. His unit, the 11th Panzer Division, was destroyed in the Ruhr pocket. Among his personal effects, returned to his family after the war, was a captured M1 Garand he had apparently carried as a personal weapon. The rifle, examined by family members, showed evidence of use and careful maintenance. Even German officers recognized the weapon's superiority enough to carry it themselves when opportunity allowed. The final accounting came in the immediate post-war period, as military historians and weapons experts examined the factors that had determined the war's outcome. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey, established to assess the effects of Allied bombing campaigns, also evaluated German military effectiveness more broadly. Among their findings, German infantry had fought with obsolescent weapons against technologically superior opponents, and this obsolescence had contributed materially to Germany's defeat. A 1946 report by the U.S. Army Ground Forces Equipment Board systematically compared American and German small arms. The report concluded, "The M1 Garand provided American infantry with decisive firepower advantages over German forces, armed primarily with bolt-action rifles. The Kar 98K, while reliable and accurate, was fundamentally inferior for modern infantry combat. German semi-automatic rifles, when encountered, proved inferior to the M1 Garand in reliability and ease of manufacture." The report noted that captured German documents consistently acknowledged American small arms superiority. German officers at virtually every level had recognized the problem. Some had attempted to develop solutions. But organizational dysfunction, resource constraints, and competing priorities had prevented effective response. Germany had lost the infantry arms race not through ignorance, but through inability to respond effectively to a recognized problem. Soviet evaluations reached similar conclusions. Post-war Soviet military analysis, examining German military effectiveness, noted that German infantry firepower had proven inadequate against both American M1 Garands and Soviet semi-automatic rifles. The Soviets concluded that future infantry forces required semi-automatic or fully automatic individual weapons to remain competitive. This analysis would influence Soviet small arms development throughout the Cold War. The British, who had equipped their infantry with bolt-action Lee-Enfield rifles throughout World War II, also took note. While the Lee-Enfield's 10-round magazine and smooth bolt-action allowed very rapid fire by trained soldiers, British military analysts recognized that American semi-automatic rifles provided advantages that bolt-actions could not match. This recognition influenced British adoption of the FN-FAL semi-automatic rifle after the war. The M1 Garand had validated the concept that semi-automatic rifles should be standard infantry equipment. Before World War II, this remained controversial. After World War II, it became accepted wisdom. Every major military power developed or adopted semi-automatic rifles for their infantry. The bolt-action rifle, which had dominated military thinking for 70 years, was obsolete for frontline infantry use. Germany's experience provided the cautionary example. A technologically advanced nation with excellent soldiers and sophisticated military doctrine had entered war with an obsolescent primary infantry weapon. They had recognized the problem. They had attempted to develop solutions. But industrial and organizational constraints had prevented effective response. The result was predictable. Their infantry consistently lost firefights against better-equipped opponents. The lessons extended beyond rifles to broader questions of military procurement and industrial policy. Military effectiveness in modern warfare depended not just on soldier quality or tactical doctrine, but on industrial capacity to equip forces with superior technology in sufficient quantities. Germany had possessed the engineering capability to design competitive weapons. They had lacked the industrial capacity and organizational effectiveness to produce and field those weapons at scale. American success with the M1 Garand reflected not just good design, but effective procurement, efficient mass production, and logistical systems capable of supporting a technologically advanced weapon in global warfare. Eugene Stoner's excellent rifle design had been paired with Springfield Armory's manufacturing expertise and the United States military's logistical capability. The combination proved decisive. German veterans interviewed decades after. The war consistently acknowledged American small arms superiority. Men who had fought with distinction, who had demonstrated courage and skill, nevertheless admitted that they had been outgunned at the most fundamental level. Theodor Wolff, who had served in the Hermann Göring Panzer Division in Italy and the 276th Volksgrenadier Division in the Ardennes, stated in a 1980 interview, "The American rifle was simply better than ours." This is not a comfortable thing for a soldier to admit, but it was true. Their semi-automatic rifle gave them advantages we could not match with our bolt actions. This affected every engagement, every firefight. Over time, these small advantages accumulated into decisive superiority. The statistical evidence supported these qualitative assessments. Analysis of small unit engagements where numbers and positions were roughly equal showed that American forces consistently inflicted higher casualties while suffering fewer losses. While multiple factors contributed, artillery support, air power, logistics, soldier-level firepower played a significant role. American infantry squads could generate more effective fire than German infantry squads of similar size. Combat consumption of ammunition provided another measure. American infantry units expended vast quantities of small arms ammunition compared to German units. While some of this reflected different tactical doctrine and ammunition availability, it also reflected that American soldiers could afford to fire more because they carried weapons capable of rapid, sustained fire. The M1 Garand enabled tactical approaches that would have been impractical with bolt-action rifles. Training time presented another telling comparison. German recruits typically spent weeks mastering the K9-8K, learning to fire rapidly and accurately with the bolt action. Even after extensive training, a German soldier could rarely exceed 10 aimed shots per minute. American recruits learned M1 Garand basic operation in days and could quickly achieve 30 or more aimed shots per minute with proper training. The semi-automatic mechanism reduced the training required for effective combat use, while simultaneously increasing combat effectiveness. The reliability comparison revealed unexpected truths. Pre-war assumptions held that mechanically complex semi-automatic rifles would prove less reliable than simple bolt actions. Combat experience demonstrated this was false when weapons were properly designed and maintained. The M1 Garand proved just as reliable as the K9-8K under combat conditions. Both weapons continued functioning in mud, rain, dust, and extreme temperatures. The theoretical reliability advantage of the bolt-action rifle had been a myth. Manufacturing efficiency told perhaps the most important story. By 1944, American factories produced an M1 Garand in fewer than 8 man-hours, mostly semi-skilled labor. German factories required more than twice that time to produce a K9-8K, despite its mechanically simpler design. American mass production techniques, standardized parts, and efficient assembly lines allowed production of a superior weapon in less time and with less skilled labor. This industrial advantage multiplied American materiel superiority across every category of equipment. The contrast extended to every aspect of the weapon's life cycles. M1 Garands, manufactured in 1943, continued functioning effectively through the 1960s in American service and remained in use by many nations decades longer. Parts compatibility meant that any M1 Garand could be repaired using parts from any other M1 Garand, regardless of manufacturer or production date. American logistical systems ensured spare parts remained available in quantity. German Kar 98Ks, while durable, showed increasing quality variation as the war progressed. Early war production maintained high standards. Late war production, under bombing and resource constraints, showed rough finishing and declining tolerances. While the rifles continued functioning, the visible decline in quality signaled Germany's broader industrial collapse. Spare parts became increasingly scarce as the war continued, forcing German armourers to cannibalize damaged weapons to keep others operational. The human dimension of this story deserves final consideration. German soldiers did not lose battles because they lacked courage or skill. Wehrmacht infantry demonstrated extraordinary tactical proficiency throughout the war. Individual German soldiers were typically well-trained and highly motivated. Their leadership at company and battalion level was often excellent. Yet these advantages could not overcome the basic disadvantage of fighting with an inferior primary weapon. Every firefight began with German soldiers having to work bolt actions, while American soldiers fired semi-automatically. This gap multiplied across thousands of engagements over nearly 3 years of combat, accumulated into strategic disadvantage Germany could not overcome. No amount of training or tactical skill could bridge the technological gap. The simple mathematics of rate of fire, when American soldiers could fire 2 or 3 aimed shots for every 1 German shot, determined outcomes at the most basic level of infantry combat. This reality emerged clearly in the testimony of German POWs throughout the war's final 2 years. Captured German soldiers, when questioned about American equipment and tactics, consistently cited the M1 Garand as a significant advantage. Intelligence summaries compiled these observations, noting patterns that appeared across hundreds of interrogations. German soldiers recognized what their leadership had been slow to acknowledge. The Americans had better rifles, and this mattered enormously in combat. The story of German recognition of M1 Garand superiority ultimately illustrates several timeless military truths. Technological advantage, even at the level of individual infantry weapons, affects strategic outcomes. Industrial capacity determines not just quantity, but quality of equipment. Organizational flexibility to recognize problems and implement solutions matters as much as engineering capability. Half measures and partial solutions, like limited production of G43 semi-automatic rifles, cannot overcome systemic disadvantages. Perhaps most importantly, the story demonstrates that even obvious problems may go unsolved when organizations lack the capability to respond effectively. German officers recognized American small arms superiority by 1942. They understood the tactical implications by 1943. They attempted to develop responses through 1944. Yet the problem remained unsolved through war's end, because recognition alone cannot create solutions when industrial and organizational capacity prove inadequate. American soldiers who carried M1 Garands from Normandy to the Rhine rarely appreciated how significant their advantage was. The rifle simply worked. It fired rapidly and accurately. It proved reliable. Ammunition was always available. These seemed normal to troops who had trained with the rifle and fought with it. Only when they encountered German prisoners carrying captured M1 Garands or heard testimony from POWs who envied American equipment did they fully understand the magnitude of their advantage. The final weeks of the war saw increasing numbers of German soldiers surrendering with captured American weapons in their possession. These soldiers, when questioned, consistently stated they had preferred the M1 Garand to their issued Kar 98Ks. This represented extraordinary acknowledgement of technological inferiority. Soldiers traditionally show fierce loyalty to their national weapons, viewing them as symbols of military prowess and national capability. For German soldiers to openly prefer enemy weapons indicated how wide the capability gap had become. The liberation of concentration camps and prisoner of war facilities revealed another dimension of the story. Allied POWs who had been captured and held in German custody reported that their M1 Garands had been highly prized by German guards. Captured American rifles rarely remained in storage. They were immediately issued to German security units, or rear area forces. The weapons were considered valuable enough that complex bureaucratic procedures existed for tracking and allocating captured M1 Garands among German units. Wehrmacht ordnance records, captured after the war, documented approximately 50,000 M1 Garands in German possession by late 1944. These had been captured at various points throughout the war, primarily in North Africa, Italy, and France. Rather than being simply destroyed or stored, they had been issued to German units. Ammunition supply complicated their use, as 8mm Mauser would not function in the American rifle, and 30-06 was available only through captured stocks. Nevertheless, German forces valued the weapons enough to maintain separate supply chains for captured American ammunition. This represented remarkable logistical effort given Germany's collapsing infrastructure. That German military authorities devoted scarce resources to maintaining captured M1 Garands in operational use demonstrated how highly they valued the weapons. No comparable effort was made to utilize captured Soviet or British rifles. The M1 Garand alone warranted this exceptional treatment. The technical analysis that German ordnance conducted on captured M1 Garands revealed both admiration and frustration. Reports praised the rifle's design elegance, manufacturing quality, and operational reliability. German engineers recognized the sophistication of Eugene Stoner's gas system and the cleverness of the en-bloc clip design. They noted the high-quality materials and precise machining that characterized American production. The weapons represented everything German military industry aspired to achieve, but increasingly could not deliver under wartime pressures. Attempts to copy or adapt the M1 Garand design for German production proved futile. The manufacturing processes required machinery and production capacity Germany did not possess. The tolerances required precision that Germany's bombed and increasingly desperate factories could not maintain. Even if production had been possible, retooling would have required time Germany no longer had. By the point German engineers thoroughly understood the M1 Garand's superiority, the war situation made responding impossible. This timing failure characterized much of Germany's wartime weapons development. Superior enemy equipment was often recognized only after the strategic situation had deteriorated to the point where effective response became impossible. The M1 Garand exemplified this pattern. American semi-automatic rifle superiority should have been obvious from early intelligence reports. Acting on that intelligence would have required beginning German semi-automatic rifle development and production no later than 1941. By the time German leadership seriously attempted to address the problem in 1943 and 1944, responding effectively required resources Germany no longer possessed. The broader question of why Germany failed to develop competitive semi-automatic rifles before the war, when resources and time were available, reflects deeper problems in German military culture and procurement. German military tradition emphasized mechanical simplicity and soldier skill over technological innovation. The bolt-action rifle represented this philosophy perfectly. Simple, reliable, dependent on soldier training for effectiveness. Semi-automatic rifles represented unfamiliar complexity and implied that technology might matter more than training. This philosophical resistance to new categories of weapons appeared in multiple areas of German military procurement. Submachine guns faced similar skepticism until combat experience proved their value. Assault rifles developed despite rather than because of official policy. German military leadership often reacted to technical innovation slowly, preferring proven designs over novel concepts. This conservatism served adequately when Germany faced opponents similarly equipped. Against American industrial innovation, backed by massive production capacity, it proved catastrophic. The experience influenced post-war military thinking worldwide. The lesson that infantry needed semi-automatic or automatic rifles became accepted doctrine. But the deeper lesson that recognizing a problem early and responding decisively matters more than reacting after problems become obvious proved harder to internalize. Military organizations continued to repeat Germany's error of identifying problems but failing to implement solutions until too late. The M1 Garand served American forces through the Korean War and into the early Vietnam era, before replacement by the M14. The rifle's basic design influenced multiple subsequent weapons. The M14 was essentially an M1 Garand modified to accept a detachable box magazine and capable of selective fire. Modern American military rifles trace lineage through the M14 back to Eugene Stoner's original M1 design. The weapon's influence extended across 60 years of small arms development. No German World War II rifle achieved comparable legacy. The Kar 98K remains a historical curiosity, a well-made bolt-action rifle that represented the end of its design lineage rather than the beginning of new development. The G43 disappeared into obscurity after the war. Only the St. G44 assault rifle influenced subsequent development, primarily through its intermediate cartridge concept rather than its specific mechanism. German World War II. Small arms are remembered primarily as examples of what not to do, continuing with obsolescent designs too long, recognizing problems but failing to implement solutions, allowing organizational dysfunction to prevent effective technical response. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.